My name is Jing. I'm the brand manager here at Hasbro, and you guys all know Chris. But Chris, quick intro.
Hey, I'm Chris. No, I'm design manager over the fan side of the Star Wars business. We have fan and kid. I'm design manager over the fan side.
All right, so we're gonna dive right in. Chris, the other Chris from Panthascom.
Thank you. So the revealed comic-inspired Boba Fett figures served as a double whammy for fans. Not only did it feed more into the repaint fatigue, but it also resulted in some sticker shock. Will we ever see Boba Fett figures at the basic figure price ever again?
Yeah, so we've seen this question, so thank you for asking that, so we can kind of address it a little bit. Like, first off, I think it's two-part. First part is pricing is ultimately at the discretion of the retailer, and I think some people have pointed out how our pricing when we went out with the reveal from our PR perspective was slightly different, and I think that's just something that it's not at our discretion. For one, and then for the other piece of it is just what goes into making Boba, which Chris can speak to more directly.
Yeah, I mean, you guys all understand how complicated the Boba Fett figure is, and he is exceptional in our product line, where number of pieces and usually deco, not always, but usually deco is high on him as well, just and partly because of the number of pieces. While he might be simple looking in some variants of him, color palette wise, because each piece has a little bit of deco on it, there's more deco labor, and there's certainly more assembly labor on that. Anytime you take multiple parts and are putting it together, there's a human doing that, and that I would say that assembly labor and multiple parts are always going to drive the cost of Fett. To the question of will we ever see a Fett at the price matching regular figures or mainline figures again, that's tough to say. I would guess that unless it's a new meaningful Boba Fett that we integrate in and then we take a hit on him specifically and average that out across other figures in his wave, probably not, because Boba Fett himself he's a popular character, so he always wants to be multiple figures in that case pack. So he's always going to be the leader. So it's tough to average when you've got that guy in there. So that's why he ends up leaning towards a more deluxe figure and deluxe price points all the time. It's a big messy issue of the cost of doing him, and if he wasn't so cool, he wouldn't be as expensive. And it's not that we're artificially inflating that price. Like, that's just like we're trying to get that down because we want him at that mainline price, and we're kind of bottoming out as far down as we can go to do that. So
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah. Jake for Lomsakis.
Perfect. Welcome. Thank you. Welcome. Like it's my meeting. Good morning. Happy New Year. Thanks for having us always. Actually, my question kind of connects to that a little bit. My first question is, during the Bring Home the Galaxy holiday campaign, Walmart offered the ARC Commander Blitz and Target offered the Kenner Boba Fett. Since it appears that Target owns the rights to the Fett repaints and Walmart for ARC repaints, well, would there be any hesitation in letting fans choose the next set of sculpts they would like to see retailers reuse for future releases?
Yeah, so we definitely did, and thank you for noticing that, group relevant figures with certain retailers just to give us some cohesiveness and consistency. We just thought it made fun programs, and in the future may go to different retailers, for example, as we switch things around. So to your question about like for the next set and what you would like to see, absolutely open to ideas. That is without a doubt, especially if you see programs like that just make sense. We'd love to hear from you. So we do read a question that we've gotten is like, do we pay attention to the
the community? We do. Yeah.
Sometimes something gets posted, we immediately get like a ping from Eric and Emily and be like, did you see this? So if you put it out there, we will definitely keep an eye out. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, moving on, Maria.
Hi, yeah, it's me.
Sorry, Mary. I guess I have Maria. Do you go by Mary?
Yeah, I go by Mary.
Yeah.
It's simple like that.
Got it. Great. And yeah, would love to hear your question.
Well, good morning, first of all, and thank you for having us. So, as guerrastellari.net, we were deeply honored to present as an exclusive the vintage collection under Bunker playset action figure. So we had two questions about this specific set. Where did the idea of choosing the Bunker come from, and why specifically did you choose the Rebel Scout as your action figure?
Well, with excuse me, with all our play sets that we do, we try and pick ones that are kind of a central scene, or at least a scene that will support a lot of other characters and figures in that scene. And that bunker scene, obviously in Jedi, like that's a massive scene of troopers and heroes and Ewoks and all sorts of stuff. So it provides a great display backdrop for our fans' collections. So that's part of what went into that. I mean, also Return of the Jedi and the anniversary, like we knew it was going to be a Return of the Jedi one. And there are a few, we were already doing the Boba Fett's throne room, so fans are already getting a Jabba's palace sort of thing going on. So that bunker made sense for price and all those requirements of fitting figure display space. It also it formed kind of an anchor. I mean, you guys know about the ATST, like the speeder bike. There's other stuff, and it forms the kind of the central location to build out that little world and scene. So all those pieces were all supporting each other to make that a meaningful choice. The figure himself, that's just straight up fun. I mean, it's a character we hadn't done before, and wanting to do kind of an obscure character that was meaningful to fans. I mean, I've always loved that guy, and then his version in disguise in the speeder bike outfit just felt like a very fun one to include in that set specifically.
Thank you.
Yep.
Brian, Star Wars Newsnet.
Morning, guys. First off, just thanks for having us on. My first question is, we at Star Wars Newsnet are big fans of the design of the Tognaths. We first saw Benthic and Endrio, 2 tubes in Rogue One, and also in Andor. Hasbro did release a 3 3/4 inch figure, but are you guys planning to release a larger scale figure with these cool looking guys, especially after we saw 2 tubes in Andor?
But we can't comment about anything we haven't announced yet. But he is agreed. Our team loves him too. You guys probably all know Eric and Eric's affinity for aliens and creatures. So Eric has him square in his sights, but we don't have anything to tell you guys yet. So
that's fair.
Augustine. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Vintage Pacer.
Thank you. Morning, Jim. Morning, Chris. Thanks for giving us the chance to interact with you. My first question is related to something that Mary asked before, and you, Chris, mentioned something already in your answer, but it's about the bunker and the ATST that comes with the Chewie figure. Why weren't Ewoks added in to expand on world building? Particularly thinking about the ATST, which comes with a $90 price tag, which is kind of high.
Well, for the Ewok specifically, we don't have any new Ewoks planned for the Jedi line, but we wanted to give us a meaningful figure that tied directly to the ATST in there. The Chewie figure just made sense because, I mean, you guys know about Han coming to go with that bunker. It was just kind of a nice build out of that story and that scene. Like we like I was talking just a little bit ago. It like Chewie being up in that ATST and yelling and scaring everybody, it just made that scene, and that was just part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Evan, Star Wars TVC.
Good morning, you guys. Thank you again for doing one of these. Appreciate you.
You're a little quiet, Evan.
Oh, let's see. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool. Okay, first off, this is on behalf of my teammate Tyler. TVC fans are delighted to see an all-new Admiral Piet added to TVC, a highly requested figure for many years. In the Empire Strikes Back, Piet's rank badge changes from 3 red squares over 3 blue squares as a captain to 6 red squares over 6 blue squares after his promotion to Admiral. Then, due to a costuming error, he reverts to the 3 over 3 captain badge in Return of the Jedi, along with every other officer, regardless of rank. It seems that this Piet release will include the inaccurate Return of the Jedi badge as part of the 40th anniversary celebration, which is fine. While we know you cannot comment on any future releases, are you aware at least that many fans would like to see Piet with his correct Empire Strikes Back Admiral badge on an Empire Strikes Back card as well, especially as it's the first film he appeared in, and vintage collection cards tend to most often be based on the character's debut films. It would mean a lot to fans who have waited so long for a definitive release.
We are aware of the differences. It was much discussed here. Emily and I we know all about it. I would say fans just need to be patient.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, back up to the front for round 2, Chris, Bantha Skull.
Thank you. Chris, during the reveal video of the ATST on the Hasbro Pulse YouTube channel, you said that you've gone back in and tightened up some joints. Going off script a little bit, fans heard this before, specifically with the ATST Raider, and then it still fell down. So to give fans confidence to pre-order this, can you provide further details on what this means specifically, what steps were taken to ensure the ATST stays standing up?
Yeah, it was, so in all transparency, like when I got the Raider ATST, it was, the sample I had was floppy and I wasn't happy. On top of all the comments where I was already anticipating when I pulled it out that it was going to be a little loose. But so going into the new release, that was a huge thing to address. And we went back into all the little parts that make up the joints, all the different materials, and increased the stiffness of some of those materials, but also tuned the molds themselves to be a little tighter fitting. So that my biggest worry now is that fans are going to complain that some of the joints are too tight. So which I don't want, but the decision I made was that I feel like too tight is probably good for that one, because you can wear it in if it's too tight, but you can't wear it to tight if it's loose. So, and that one for me, when I would get him out of the box, I would take my hand and press his 2 feet down on a table and kind of pose him where I wanted him, and hands off, and he holds it. So it's a noticeable difference for me from where it was previously.
Great. And don't worry, fans never complain, so don't worry about that.
Never.
Jake.
All right. First off, we'd like to commend you on the release of from Forlom and Zuckus with their correct Kenner names. Second, the success of the retro collection has discussion begun about growing this line to include waves from other media sources such as animation, prequels, sequels, video game characters, Disney park characters, legends, and so on. The subline's format of being 5 POA, having a lower price point, and typically consisting of just 6 figures away, a wave seems like it would be a good fit for retailers.
The shortest answer I can give you is that 23 will make retro fans very happy. Perfect. And answer some of those questions that you just had. Yeah. Perfect. No, I love retro. It's where my my heart is as a classic fan. I love the style, and I'm the designer on retro. So I'm gonna make stuff that I want to make.
I knew you were, and I was glad you were here when I knew that question was coming. So perfect.
All right, Mary. Sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry, my computer. So Darth Malak and Stilashan, a dream come true for Knights of the Old Republic, for the action figure Gremlin Grades. Although it has already been 20 years since the very first quarter of the expanded universe, so we wanted to know which were the key points that led to the decision of creating an action figure based on this specific game.
Well, I think the thing that really got us excited was when Lucasfilm had that little teaser of the new version coming. And but those characters are, and Revan especially is, I mean, they're as much a part of Star Wars as a larger story than any other character. And I think sometimes we get so distracted by the new content that we forget about how important the breadth of content is. And that's when we're going back to gaming, and those other parts of the Star Wars universe are super meaningful to us, and we know to our fans too. So
Yeah.
getting those in was something important to us, and answered a lot of that.
Yeah, we know there's a great gaming community out there, and trust me, there are definitely people that play those games and
Yeah, I know.
advocate for those key characters.
Well,
Eric.
and I think to the point of fan site surveys of figures that are wanted and stuff. I mean, those are figures that continue to come up on those sort of things, and that's part of us paying attention. We're trying to pay attention to everything going on.
Brian,
Yes.
sorry, Brian, Star Wars Newsnet.
So while we know that supply chain issues haven't completely gone away in recent years, Hasbro's Marvel Legends don't seem to have any problem getting the figures on shelves before the movies. While the Andor figures won't be out until spring, would it be possible to go back to having figures out in time for the start of a new Star Wars series?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we always and constantly strive towards. Like you mentioned, we're still adjusting to improving supply chains, and luckily we are seeing improvements come down the pipeline as, hopefully, knock on wood, the world goes back to a new normal and we have just a little bit more consistency. And on top of that, we have great partnership with Lucasfilm, and we work closely with them on, getting the figures out in a timeline that makes sense. So it's certainly possible, and that is certainly the goal, and it's something we strive for as a company, and we will do as much of that as possible to get that closer to entertainment in the future.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Augustine.
Yes. My second question is not actually a question, it's more of a request and a reminder to make sure that you're aware that TVC fans are anxious for their third TVC Hasbro. It's actually been over 2 years since the Razor Crest was announced. We need more building playsets, we need tertiary characters to balance out our collections. Can we be assured that TVC is the next Star Wars HasLab?
Well, we don't have anything to announce. But 23 is going to be a fun year across the board for everybody. So just stay tuned. We'll have things to announce at some point, but we don't now.
Thank you. I needed to.
HasLab is an important platform for us and for Hasbro, and we want to continue to do stuff there. So.
All right. Thank you. Just remember TVC, please.
It's going to be a big year for us. Evan.
All right, I'll second the HasLab thing. That would be great. The question I have is not an easy one to read. It's 7:45 a.m. or 6:45 a.m. for me. But after the Carbon Freeze Chamber was released with almost no current figures to go with it in 2020, you guys have done a much better job of building out the world around playsets, especially last year's Navarro Cantina, which we do still need Season 1 Grief Karga and the client, by the way, but anyway, I continue on. The upcoming Endor Bunker also has some figures, but it is hard not to notice that the upcoming Boba Fett's Throne Room playset has almost no Book of Boba Fett figures to go with it. We know a couple unrelated figures like Cad Bane and the Tusken Warrior are coming from the series, but still nothing to go in the actual throne room itself, such as figures like 88, Boba's Gamorrean Guards, or last year's SWTVC March Madness winner, Chrysanthemum. The skiff guards repacks can fill out the Return of the Jedi scenes, but even those are designed to go more in the skiffs and the sail barge, and there's no individually available Jabba to go with them. Can you assure fans that more figures will be coming to display with it, either from the Book of Boba Fett or Return of the Jedi?
Yes.
Perfect.
All right.
Again, nothing to announce, but yes,
Yes.
there's stuff coming.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, back to the front. Chris, Banthas, go.
So I'm hoping for as equally of short of an answer on this one. A second reason that fans were disappointed with the Bring Home the Galaxy comic-inspired Boba Fett figures is that they were anticipating, hoping we were building up to a big Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary reveal for TVC. Without getting into specifics, will there be any more 40th anniversary product in TVC, or have we seen it all?
Yes, there's more coming. Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like we've announced the first half of the year almost, and we still have a whole other half of the year. There's a significant amount of stuff coming.
Great, thank you.
We're only in January of 23 of the year of the anniversary, but I appreciate the anticipation.
Hey,
Yeah.
we're all for Ruka's salt. We want it now.
Jake for Lumpsuckus.
I was curious about the thought process behind releasing the AT-ST and Chewbacca set. The Vintage Collection line gets very few vehicles these days, and this particular choice has been released a few times in the recent past when other Return of the Jedi vehicles have not. It's also readily available in the secondary market and has been put on deep discount more than once.
Well, I think, like we've talked a little bit, one of the big drivers for it was building out that world around the bunker. Another big motivator for it was to do a Return of the Jedi, a nice deco version of the Return of the Jedi one, updated that, and then tightened up the joints like we talked earlier too. I mean, it was there were a lot of little things that made that one a nice, meaningful update. And I mean, yes, like prices have gone up. It's more expensive than it has been, but it's also a more affordable vehicle than a lot of others could have been. And fits so nicely in that story and world of the bunker and that kind of scene storytelling.
Does that bunker have a proper name that you have found?
I've
never heard a name for the bunker.
I don't think so. There probably is one. For all I know, I've illustrated it and labeled it in a book I've worked on. I don't know.
Good.
That one didn't make it into the card catalog,
right?
So I can't access that data.
Thank you,
Mary.
Okay, so Mara Jade is the Legends iconic character to whom many, and especially our editorial director, are particularly attached. The comic and the descriptive page of the character on the packaging are wonderful, but with the use of the plastic-free packaging, it's not possible anymore to admire the figure unless it's removed from the box. Don't you reckon there could have been a different solution, and could the action figure be penalized by the nature of the box itself?
Yeah, I mean, first off, thank you for commenting on marriage. That figure, we were very excited about. It's one of our favorites, and certain designers have been pushing for her as well. So, we have heard from some fans that they appreciate the posed out renders at the front of the pack as well. So there's definitely a balance between the two. When we first revealed it at STCC, the plastic free packaging, and while we certainly acknowledge that there are fan sentiments like you just mentioned as well. So again, it's a balance. We love the packaging that is out there now, since it really highlights how action oriented she can be. It really shows them posed out in some of those action poses. And yeah, it's something that we'll continue to keep an eye out, but it was great to see her posed out in that box.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Brian. Star Wars Newsnet.
So I've got a question here. It says, is Luke's costume in The Mandalorian wrong? I believe they're talking about the 6-inch Black Series figures. In the series, he wears a black robe in the style of the prequels, but the figure is in his costume from Return of the Jedi. The cape is correct, but the robe underneath seems wrong.
I think they're talking about the TVC one. So that figure, we developed that figure very early for the show, at the point where we had very little reference. We knew Luke was going to be there, but we had very little final reference for what it was. So there was a lot of working off of descriptions to do that figure, to get him out in time and as fast as we did. So that's one where there are subtle differences between the costume as we described and as it evolved through production. And that's one of those things where just sometimes we're trying to do stuff so early and working so kind of in hand with our Lucasfilm partners that we're working as things are changing. So we can't always catch all those adjustments, but it's the sort of thing where we try and get as close as we can and stuff out as fast as we can. And sometimes the balance gets a little off, and that one, the balance got off on, we got him out fast, but we didn't get him quite as accurate as the show ended up being. So it's just that. It's a little bit of difference from working so early on him.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Augustine.
Yes. Here's another request. It's about new tooling. Looking back at last year, according to our calculations, only 10 TVC figures were all new tooling. There's been a petition to expand and help increase the tooling library to balance the scales and to make TVC as healthy as possible. Incremental progress doesn't seem to be enough. So is there a chance, and now I'm tying this up with my previous request, is still on the table, the idea of having figure dream packs via Hasbro?
Yeah, I mean, figure dream packs are something that's on our radar. It would be a great way to deliver figures for fans. I do think that the number of new tools that you guys think there were is maybe off a little bit, and I think that's because of shipping schedules and stuff. It's not the number we plan and we track to, but because of delays and early shipments or late shipments, like I think that number, while it might be what's actually happening, that's not how we're planning it. So we're trying to deliver differently than that. But to the question of the figure packs, yeah, like that's something that's on our radar, and we look to as a potential future way to go. But it's not something that we've done yet, but isn't off the table.
Basically, anything you guys come up with becomes on our radar.
Yeah. I mean, if it's
So,
something you guys want, it's in our interest to get it to you.
yeah,
So.
we've heard it, just like you guys have talked about it. But nothing to know.
Thank you.
Evan.
Yeah.
Or Susie.
My next question is, one, thank you for switching to the thicker card backs on the vintage collection a few ways back. It has helped make sure that the figures can arrive in a little better condition. Unfortunately, it has also led to a new issue, which is the strange white scuff marks and indentations on the cards to the right of the bubble. As far as we can tell, this seems to be caused by figures being packed into their cases too tightly and pressing into each other. We know that fans have brought this to your attention before, but have you been able to make any progress on fixing this issue?
Yeah, so obviously we did hear, and like you mentioned, we have, we've heard it from the fans. And so we brought it internally, and trust me, as a big company, we went to our dedicated department in QA and had them do extensive testing, and they did community and transit and all of that I can't even, speak to, because that is not my level of expertise, but they absolutely did extensive testing. I will say that there are some things that we're already talking to about with the vendor, so it's on our radar. We just got to make sure that we continue to monitor and keep that up. So if we'll continue to look at that. If you guys see more, let us know. We're paying attention. And if there are issues, also feel free to contact our customer service as well. But yeah, no, thank you to the fans that were telling us about it. We are looking into it.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. We are going to try to do one more round quickly because we have 6 more minutes. Chris, Bantha skill.
Okay, there's a concept in the TVC community that certain figures should always be available. The most often cited example of this is the OT Stormtrooper as something that fans should always have access to. And what you hear is, I should be able to walk into Walmart and buy one whenever I want. From a factory and resource allocation standpoint, is it even feasible to have certain figures continuously available?
Short answer, probably not. But realistically, what we try and do is address that other ways where it might not be that figure always available. It might be that, it's part of where the troop builder packs come from, is trying to answer those sort of questions and taking a figure like a Stormtrooper and, okay, well, here's a deluxe version with a blaster, here's a mainline offering, here's a troop builder pack, and doing things like that so that while it might not be VC whatever, it's addressing that figure and that sculpt availability. The band with the factories and all that stuff. We could probably dedicate an entire line to just always making Stormtroopers, but the factories, once they're rolling, they're making so many, they'd actually have to pause and then go make something else and then come back and make more Stormtroopers and then pause. And so I think it makes a richer line when we do it the way we're doing it, where we're kind of sprinkling them around instead of saying, okay, here's Darth Vader always hanging on this peg. So
yeah, it's also just transparently just takes a lot of planning because we definitely have to worry about capacity and all of that as well. So I think nothing is impossible, but okay. Jake, for a long second. I think he's frozen. So we can certainly circle back to him. Okay, Mary.
Okay, so Star Wars Bring Home the Galaxy. You presented an audit to Boba Fett's action figure, the comic art edition, and the vintage comic art. So someone could believe that apart from the coloring of the coloration, there aren't any more differences. So could you please illustrate some of the details that distinguish them?
I'm sorry, I got distracted by an emergency thing happening here.
It's okay. Don't worry about that.
It's Boba Fett. Mary,
yeah, we wanted to know if you could please illustrate some of the details that distinguish the vintage comic art and the comic art edition of Boba Fett that you presented. Has Star Wars Bring Home the Galaxy, of course, apart from the coloring and the coloration of the figures.
Yeah, well, I think we've talked a little bit about just how complicated those figures are to make. Those comic ones, it was part of trying to figure a fun new way to bring Boba Fett figures to fans. And tell a larger story about that character and how much meaningfulness there has been around him and different looks for him. In the comic versions, it was a great way to look at kind of at fun different looks for him. So in doing those couple different comic ones, the Kenner ones, like that, all that sort of stuff talks to the history and the evolution of Fett and that Cam Kennedy art and some in that Marvel comic art. And I know for me, those were so iconic versions of that character, and the team did such a great job interpreting that art into Fett. I mean, down to reflections on the visor that mimic stuff in the comic art. So it's just about celebrating Boba Fett and his different takes over time.
Thanks. Awesome.
Awesome.
Sorry, I
Well,
got distracted. I'm trying.
Of course.
Stop
no, no
looking at
worries.
you. Yeah. Jake, I think welcome back. I think you
Yeah.
got disconnected. So we'll circle back up to you so that you can ask your question.
Thank you so much. Last year, it was revealed that the Retro Collection will be releasing another 6 figures from Star Wars, which includes C-3PO and R2-D2, both with what appears to be VAC metallization. Is there a target date for those figures? And is VAC metallized figures back on the menu for possible future releases in TVC and or TBS?
Yes, so we, as an update, we are targeting spring of this year. So very shortly, we should hopefully be seeing more of that. And we are happy that fans are eagerly awaiting this set because it's one of our favorites. Chris worked really hard on that from a retro perspective. He's the designer in retro. As for future opportunities, like Chris can speak to it, it's something that like we certainly love to explore, especially given the popularity of it, but the cost of it won't let us be like just a regular figure. So it definitely has to be a special pack, like we saw with this pack that you're referencing right now. And if there's something specific that the community wants to see that they think will be extra cool as a special pack with those back metal options on it, something we'd love to hear from the team, from the community. Spring, it's almost here.
Spring.
Yeah, and it looks really cool. The R2 and 3PO are worth the wait. Those 2 figures alone. So
yeah. Brian.
My final question for you guys. I know you guys can't talk a whole lot about HasLab and what you guys kind of have coming down the pipeline for it. But why wasn't a Jedi Knight one of the options for Star Wars fans for HasLab? And when are you guys going to add some awesome beards for the people who are growing beards?
you mean for selfie series?
Right, for the selfie series, yes, sir.
Oh. Just stay tuned. There's selfie series isn't going away, and it's growing and continuing. So, as a guy with a beard, I feel the question deeply. But yeah, stay tuned. We'll have more on that at some point.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
nothing to share on HasLabs, but you know, it's always on our radar. It's a big platform for us as well.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, Augustine.
Hey, my next question is about the speeder bike. Can you speak to why the speeder bike lacks previous features like adjustable handlebars, adjustable blaster cannon, or peg holes in the feet, while you spend money on other tooling like the engine compartment?
Mm-hmm. Well, that was so the speeder bike. I mean, obviously with Return of the Jedi, the speeder bike's such an iconic part of Return of the Jedi, and wanting to do that for the anniversary. And doing the speeder bike, there are a lot of things that went into that decision, and to retool that and do fully new tools on that. Wow, sometimes those words don't come out smoothly. But also as part of that, trying to make it be a more affordable offering for fans, because the way things are going now, like every level of complexity adds more cost. It's the same with the Boba Fett figures. It's all of that. So trying to be very cognizant of that and simplify things where we could, while still delivering a more accurate version of the speeder bike than we have previously. That thing is pretty spot on to scale, for off the original blueprints to match the original bikes in a way that the previous release wasn't. Doing things like the engine compartment, like those pieces needed to be molded the way they were to make that thing in production. So adding that engine detail was essentially free value in the toy. Little things like removing the foot pegs, that was intentional because not all of our figures have foot pegs in the heel or peg holes in the heel. Some of them have them in the toe or the center of the foot, and leaving that peg on the footrest place, I felt was actually going to limit play on that. Since that thing has a little bit of a rail around it anyway, there's kind of already a natural foothold built into those footrests on the speeder bike. So that particular one was a very conscious decision to do that. The handlebars moving, that was one just to make them more stable in kind of the standard position. They're anchored in there. If you really want to move them forward, you can move pieces out. But they're not glued in place, so you can move the little things out and actually move them a little bit. But all those sort of decisions to simplify things, but not to give up detail in order to make it a more affordable toy.
We have 1 minute. Well, actually, we're 4 minutes over. So, Evan, if you have a quick one, we'd love to quickly answer that to close out the round.
I'll just say none of mine are quick, so I'll just say we're farming information for our March Madness this year, so I hope you guys are ready to see what the community is asking for.
Oh,
we are dying.
We are.
Yeah.
Evan, keep it coming.
We saw the call go out the other day. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Hope you guys are watching.
Appreciate it. And then just a quick flag tomorrow. We do have, I know this is Star Wars, but we do have an indie live stream tomorrow that Chris is going to be on at 11 a.m. So please feel free to join us and see, Chris and Patrick and Eric talk about new indie news.
Oh yeah, there's some cool stuff there too.
More retro.
Just to hijack slightly. Thank you everyone for joining us, and sorry that we went a few minutes late. We always love doing this with you, and I'm sure we'll see you all soon.